Good evening. Welcome to Vax Facts and FAQs. I am Amiris Robertson with the National Kidney Foundation of Michigan. Today, you will be joining us for VFF, our virtual presentation and discussion on how to stay healthy and get up-to-date information on flu and COVID-19. This month, we will start with providing COVID-19 updates, including the community levels in Wayne County, Michigan, COVID-19 variants and subvariants, and we will briefly touch on the authorization of Novavax. Then we will discuss misinformation and disinformation, and provide some resources on how to discuss and identify misinformation and disinformation. And then, of course, we will conclude with FAQs. So first, we will start with the COVID-19 updates, beginning with the community levels. The COVID-19 community levels in Wayne County, Michigan remain low. However, the surrounding county community levels are classified as medium, including Washtenaw County and Monroe County. Comparatively, the U.S., over on the right side of the screen, is facing a rise in cases, deaths, and hospitalizations, which all affect the community levels. And so almost 42% of the counties, districts, and territories overall in the U.S. have a high COVID-19 community level. And we just want to remind you what that means, COVID-19 community levels. And we also want to remind you that monitoring community levels is a tool that is another layer of protection against COVID-19. Knowing what prevention measure to practice is key, and monitoring the community levels lets us know when we need to be more vigilant in our prevention measures and when we can ease up a little bit. So, for example, right now in Wayne County, Michigan, the classification is low. So right now, the recommendation is to have a plan for rapid testing and to talk to your healthcare provider about whether you are a candidate for treatment, and including oral antivirals. From there, when we move on to medium, as the classification is in Washtenaw County and in Monroe County, the recommendation is to also wear a mask and respirator that provides you with greater protection, such as the KN95 masks. And then from there, which is unfortunately a large part of the U.S., is the classification with high, where we also see the recommendation to avoid non-essential indoor activities. And also at any level, people that are at a higher risk for serious illness, with those with symptoms, exposure to other, or those who have been exposed to someone with COVID-19 or test positive, should take extra precautions to protect themselves and others. So if you're someone with chronic kidney disease, for example, you may take extra precautions regardless of your COVID-19 community levels. But if you're someone who's not moderately or severely immunocompromised, or if you're someone who has not had recent exposure, you may want to utilize this tool to know when you need to be more vigilant or when you can relax just a little bit. Another COVID-19 update we're going to discuss is variants and subvariants. A variant is when there is a change in the genetic code or mutation of the virus. And mutations occur often, but not all mutations result in a change in how the virus acts or presents itself. So in other words, some of these mutations may not result in an increased spread or more severe illness. Unfortunately, this is the case with the Omicron variant, where we are experiencing that Omicron appears to be evading antibody responses among people who have previously had COVID-19 and those who have been fully vaccinated and boosted due to the mutation. So Omicron spreads more easily than earlier variants. However, it appears that people are not experiencing as severe illness as previous variants, even though severe illness is always possible. It's important to remember when we're discussing, especially the current BA.5 subvariant, that is the dominant variant, that is the cause for the uptick that we're seeing right now, that we have the tools to fight this variant, including vaccinations, mask testing, and surveillance. And also, it's important to know that current available COVID-19 vaccines are still expected to provide significant protection against severe disease, hospitalizations, and deaths. And due to these mutations occurring, researchers continue to monitor these variants and subvariants and their characteristics, such as how they spread, how sick they get us, and other characteristics, so that we can continue to stay vigilant, and so that we can continue to fight these variants and the pandemic. We're quickly going to touch on the FDA authorization of Novavax adjuvanted. So the FDA has authorized the emergency use of Novavax COVID-19 adjuvanted to prevent COVID-19. This has been authorized for use for those 18 years and older. The COVID-19, the Novavax COVID-19 vaccine is given as an injection as the other ones, and it is a 2-dose series given 3 weeks apart. As more information becomes available, we will spend a lot more time on this vaccination next month. So if you are curious about this vaccine, if you're interested in this vaccine, as more information becomes available, we will spend more time on this vaccine next month due to it being different than the mRNA vaccines. It works a little bit differently, and we want to highlight that next month for you guys. So if you're interested, be sure to register and let us know. Okay, so next we're going to talk about misinformation and disinformation. So first, we want to start by highlighting the difference between misinformation and disinformation. So misinformation is information that is believed to be true, but is generally incorrect. And disinformation is incorrect information that is intentionally spread to cause harm. And this difference might seem small and slight, but it really goes to the intent behind the information, the creator of the information, the content that is circulating, and how the cause and the harm that it causes. And that intent matters, and the impact of that content matters, especially when we take into account the impact. So, however, the way that you identify misinformation and disinformation isn't too different, and a lot of the tips that we'll cover today can be helpful in identifying both. But I just wanted to highlight the intent behind disinformation is different between misinformation, because sometimes misinformation can be unintentional, because it is easy to share misinformation unknowingly, whereas disinformation, the intent is to cause harm knowingly. So also I want to highlight that misinformation can come in form, and disinformation can come in all forms of digital content. And there are some tips that can come in handy for resharing, because like I said, it is easy to kind of reshare misinformation unknowingly. So one is to check your sources. Be sure that you're resharing from a credible source. Read beyond the headlines. This is an important one because headlines are curated so that we click on them and to be clickbait. And sometimes they do a really good job. And sometimes if you read beyond the headline, your opinions may not align with the content of the article beyond the headline. And so I encourage you to read beyond the headline to make sure that your beliefs align with the content of the article, and to check the sources of the content of the article beyond the headline. And then verify the facts with the government and health organizations. And this is important because you just want to make sure that more than one person shares this opinion. You want to make sure that the opinions within an article or within a tweet or within a Facebook post can be validated with multiple sources and not just one person. Another key point to highlight is disagreeing with a new piece of COVID-19 news does not mean that it's misinformation. And it doesn't mean that it's harmful or that it is intended to harm, especially coming from a trusted agency or organization. And that just goes to highlight that you can have differing opinions, but to, again, just understand that intent matters. And this is all important because false or misleading information is causing people to make decisions that could be dangerous or have dangerous consequences for their health. During this pandemic, misinformation is, of course, causing people to decide not to get the vaccine, but it's also causing them to reject public health measures that are rather simple to implement, such as wearing a mask or physical distancing. And but even more dangerous consequences are people are using unproven treatments or medical treatments, or taking medicines that are not approved to treat COVID-19 based on misinformation. And misinformation, especially in the medical field, is not new to COVID-19. It has been within the health field for quite some time. We've seen this with other treatments, cures, diets, and cosmetic procedures, and it can be harmful. And so I really want to highlight what it can look like, misinformation, and how you can identify it when you're on social media, if you're looking at an article, or even if you're just talking and having a conversation with someone. So one type is videos that have been edited to change the meaning. This can be a harder type of misinformation to identify because Photoshop and other photo and video editing software can hide it very well. But again, you just want to utilize multiple sources to watch the same video, double check, verify the video in multiple ways to make sure that you're getting the content in its totality and not just a snippet. Websites that look professional, but their stories are often false or misleading. And one of the tips that we always hear is, .org, .edu, .gov websites are very trusted. And those are some of the websites that you can go to get your information on COVID-19 and other healthcare information. But again, you just want to double check the information that you do get, even if you're looking at news websites. So yes, there are news websites that we're all used to using, but there are news websites that are less common, and you just want to verify that information. Quotations where the end have been deleted to change the meaning, or misleading graphs or diagrams that look official but don't tell the whole story. And I think this one can also be misleading, or not misleading, difficult to double check. Graphs are tricky, but one thing I would definitely look to see is if you're looking at a graph, you want to double check to see if they tell you where they are getting their data from. Where's the data that is fueling this graph? If they don't tell you and it's just a picture with some arrows and some bars, you should question it. And then you want to double check the data. If it says 1 in 5 women X, Y, and Z, double check it. Google that statement. See if you can verify it on a .edu or a .gov website. Again, it's a lot of work, but when you're using this information to make medical decisions, the work is worth it because misinformation is it's rampant right now, and it's important to make sure that you are getting credible information as we work through this pandemic. So next we're going to talk about the available vaccines and the vaccine schedules. We thought this was important to cover because with the authorization of Novavax, with Johnson & Johnson no longer being the preferred vaccine, it's getting confusing. So we're going to walk through it and we're going to cover it. And we are first going to start with what's available simply just with the manufacturers. So there's Pfizer, BioNTech, COVID-19 vaccine, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and Novavax. And again, I'm going to say this a lot as we go through this section, but Johnson & Johnson is not the preferred vaccine. And the reason why I'm going to still cover it is because there's people that may have gotten their first dose is Johnson & Johnson, so I still want to cover what their vaccine schedule looks like. But if you are unvaccinated or if you are looking to get a booster, Johnson & Johnson is not the preferred vaccine based on CDC and FDA recommendations. So you're looking to get Pfizer, Moderna, or Novavax, which is newly authorized. Okay, so we're first going to start with the COVID-19 vaccination schedule for people who are not moderately or severely immunocompromised. And we're going to go by manufacturer. We're also going to go by age groups, and then we're going to cover the time frame, the primary series, and what boosters are available. So first, starting here with Moderna, ages 6 months to 17 years. This is a 2 primary dose series. There is no booster at this time for this age group. So you get your first dose, and then in 4 to 8 weeks, you get your second dose. Next is Moderna, 18 years and older. This series includes 2 primary doses, 1 booster, and then if you are 50 years and older, you are eligible for a second booster. So you get your first dose. In 4 to 8 weeks, you get your second dose. In at least 5 months, you get your booster. If you are not 50 years and older, that's the end of your, you are considered up to date. That's the end of your COVID-19 vaccine schedule. If you are 50 years and older, you get your second booster in at least 4 months. For Novavax, it's authorized for those 18 years and older. There's no booster for Novavax at this time. This is a 2 primary dose series. So you get your first dose, and then in 3 to 8 weeks, you get your primary dose. Okay, next we're going to go on to Pfizer. And so for this is the ages 6 months to 4 years. For Pfizer, for this age group, it is a 3 primary dose series. So that would be a key difference if you are a parent looking to vaccinate your child. So Moderna is 2 doses and Pfizer is 3 doses. So when making that decision, that might be an important factor and a key difference that you might consider. So for Pfizer, you get your first dose, 3 weeks, you get your second dose, and then at least 8 weeks, you would get your third dose. For Pfizer, 5 years and older, this would be again a 2 primary dose series. Your third dose will be a booster. If you are not 50 years and older, that is the end of your COVID-19 vaccine schedule. If you are, jumped ahead there. If you are 50 years and older, you are eligible for a second booster. So you get dose 1, and 3 to 8 weeks, you get dose 2, and at 5 months, you get your first booster. And if you are less than 50 years old, that is your only booster for right now. And then if you're 50 years and older, and at least for 4 months, you get your second booster. For J&J, this is where it gets a little complicated. So if you received your first dose as J&J, in at least 2 months, you would get dose 2. And this is a booster. And for your booster, it is recommended that you would get a mRNA for your booster vaccination and not a booster of J&J. And at least 4 months, if you are 50 years and older, you would get a second booster. For people who are 18 years and older who received 2 Johnson & Johnson doses, so if you are back here and you did not receive an mRNA booster and instead got 2 J&J shots, you are eligible to get a second booster. So I will cover that again. So if you got one J&J booster, you should, and it is recommended that you get an mRNA booster and then be done. If you're 50 years and older, it is recommended that you get a second mRNA booster. If you got a second J&J shot, you are eligible for a second booster if you are 18 years and older. I truly recommend that you discuss this with your doctor or your vaccine administrator if you did receive J&J, because it is confusing, to make sure that you receive the proper vaccination, so that you are fully vaccinated and you're not under vaccinated or over vaccinated, because it is confusing, which is why we're covering it. And if you ever have any questions, you can always reach out to the Kidney Foundation. Our contact information will be at the end. So next, we're going to cover the COVID-19 schedule for those who are moderately or severely immunocompromised. And the key difference for those who are moderately or severely immunocompromised is where authorized, and based on the age range, because not all age ranges this is authorized. This is a 3-dose primary series compared to a 2-dose primary series for those who are not immunocompromised. I'm sorry. So it's authorized for all age ranges. It's not authorized for all vaccines. So for Novavax, it's still going to be a 2-dose primary series. But if you look here for Moderna, it is a 3-dose primary series. And if we go back to Moderna, it was a 2 for that age range. So sorry for the confusion. That's what I meant. So for Moderna, for those who are moderately or severely immunocompromised, you start out with dose 1 for ages 6 months to 17 years. And in 4 weeks, you get dose 2. And at least 4 weeks, you get dose 3. Again, a 3-dose primary series. In Moderna, 18 years and older, you see the 3-dose primary series. So dose 1, in 4 weeks, you get dose 2. In 4 weeks, you get dose 3. And then you see the boosters. So in at least 3 months, you get dose 4, which is a booster. And at least 4 months, you get a second booster. This is another key difference. And for those who are moderately or severely immunocompromised, you are eligible for a second booster shot compared to those who are not moderately or severely immunocompromised, 50 years and younger. So for Novavax, just to again clear up my blunder there, there is no 3-dose primary series at this time. It's newly authorized, so it's just 2 doses, even if you are moderately or severely immunocompromised. So dose 1 in 3 weeks, dose 2. So Pfizer, 6 months to 4 years, dose 1 in 3 weeks, dose 2, in at least 8 weeks, dose 3. Pfizer, dose 1 in 3 weeks, dose 2, in at least 4 weeks, dose 3, in at least 3 months, you get 1 booster. This is another key difference for ages 5 to 11 years old between Pfizer and Moderna. This is 1 booster compared to Moderna. If we go back It's just 3 doses here, so 5 to 11 falls in here. So there's just a 3-dose primary series, and then 5 to 11 they have a booster in here for Pfizer. So that's a key difference. Again, if you're a parent and your child is not yet vaccinated and you're considering, this might be a key decision maker for which manufacturer you seek out and which conversation you have with your doctor. So for Pfizer, 12 years and older, dose 1, in 3 weeks, dose 2, in at least 4 weeks, dose 3, in at least 3 months, dose 4, and at least 4 months, dose 5. And we're here at J&J again. Again, I just have to say it again. J&J is not the preferred vaccine. So if you are unvaccinated, it is recommended that you do not seek J&J as your primary vaccination, as your primary series. It's recommended that you seek out Pfizer, Moderna, Novavax. If you did receive J&J as your primary dose, it's recommended that you get an mRNA additional dose, a booster, mRNA additional dose in 4 weeks. In at least 2 months, get a booster, mRNA, and at least 4 months, mRNA booster. That is the recommended schedule. Again, if you did receive J&J as your primary dose, I encourage you to seek out your doctor or discuss it with your vaccine administrator before vaccination to make sure you're not under-vaccinated or under-vaccinated because it is a little confusing and it's even more confusing if you are eligible for additional boosters. All right, so next we're going to get into our frequently asked questions. The first question we're going to discuss is the mRNA considered a vaccine? So the mRNA vaccine, which is Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna, work differently than other types of vaccines, but they still trigger an immune response inside of our bodies. This vaccine is new, but the research and development on this type of vaccine has been underway for decades. And they work by teaching our cells to make a harmless piece of the protein, which is a spike protein, which is found on the surface of the COVID-19 virus. And after making this piece of the protein, the cells display it on their surface. Our immune system recognizes this as something that does not belong there and responds to get rid of it. When an immune response begins, the antibodies are produced, creating the same response that occurs when creating the same response that happens in natural infection. And I am going to try to play a TikTok, hopefully. No, it was supposed to be right here, but there was a TikTok that explains it a little bit better. Oh, wait. There it is. Okay. I'm going to try to play this TikTok that kind of explains how this works. We'll give it a go.
You need to make this. What is it? It's a part of a virus. A virus? Just a part of it, not the actual virus. They're called COVID-19. They have 4 cans and they're coming. 4 cans? Please. What is this? This messenger told me to make them. I've never seen these before. I'll make some new antibodies to get rid of them. Seize the forks. Nice body. Gonna make this place my new home. Fork hands. Seize them. Ah!
Okay, so hopefully the audio works on that. But basically, once the immune system is introduced to the fork hands and it recognizes the forks, it can get rid of the forks. And the forks represent the spike proteins that I was talking about. And therefore, it can create that immune response, which got rid of the forks. I hope that explains it a little bit better. And we'll go on to the next question. This is a sensitive topic, but it's important to cover because it is a matter of ethics and a matter of religion, and both of those things play a major role in whether someone chooses to seek out many make many health decisions. So one is the question is, do the COVID-19 vaccines contain fetal cells? And this is a bit of a long answer. So the fetal cell lines, like I said, is a very sensitive topic within faith communities and among individuals with concerns of using materials derived in this way. In various stages of the vaccines development and manufacturing of the COVID-19 vaccine specifically and other vaccines, cells originally isolated from fetal cell tissues, often referred to as fetal cells, some of which were originally derived from aborted fetuses. Historic fetal cell lines were derived in the 1960s and 70s from 2 elective abortions and have been used to create vaccines for diseases such as hepatitis A, rubella, and rabies, and COVID-19. Abortions from which these fetal cells were obtained were elective and were not done for the sole purpose of vaccine manufacturing or development. And any vaccine that relies on these fetal cells do not require or solicit new abortions to take place. These historic fetal cell lines are able to be maintained and thanks to science, and have been being used since the 60s and 70s. And while these fetal cells have been used to develop or manufacture COVID-19 vaccines, the vaccines themselves do not contain aborted fetal cells. So of the available vaccines on the market, the mRNA COVID-19 vaccines produced by Pfizer and Moderna do not require the use of fetal cell cultures to manufacture their vaccines. And the viral vector vaccine, so Johnson & Johnson, did require the use of fetal cell cultures in order to produce and manufacture the vaccine. Going back, I do want to just mention that the Catholic Church and the Southern Baptist Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission have both stated that receiving a COVID-19 vaccine required fetal that require fetal cell lines for production, or manufacture is morally acceptable. And I can't personally speak to that, and I, of course, can't make that decision for anybody. But I would encourage you, just like I would encourage you to speak to a doctor about medical decisions, I would encourage you to speak to a trusted faith leader or religious leader in your faith regarding decisions of your faith when making these health decisions, if you're struggling with that. And then also look into see if your faith has talked about this or discussed this, because like I said, some faiths have spoken out regarding the COVID-19 vaccines and fetal cell lines because it has been of concern to the population, their faith and their congregations. And so they've spoken out, and I encourage you to look in to see what your religious leaders in your community has said about it. Moving on, can the COVID-19 vaccine alter my DNA? So both the messenger RNA, so mRNA, and viral vector COVID-19 vaccines work by delivering instructions. So as we saw with the fork video, the fork TikTok, they get instructions on how to get rid of the different genetic material to our cells to start building protection against the virus that causes COVID-19. And after the body produces that immune response, and after it knows how to get rid of the virus, it discards all the information that is no longer needed and all of the vaccine ingredients that are no longer needed. So the vaccine does not have the ability to integrate the delivered genetic material into our DNA, so it cannot alter our DNA. So the information that our bodies get from the vaccines, once it creates the immune response, it's discarded, and that information does not have the ability to integrate either way, and so it cannot alter your DNA. As the number of COVID-19 cases increases, is it necessary to receive a primary dose of COVID-19 vaccines or boosters? And the answer is yes. As the cases fluctuate and as subvariants and variants circulate, vaccination remains to be the best option for our protection, even if you have COVID-19, even if you've had COVID-19 in the past. And again, in these videos, we always talk about layers of protection. So even if you're vaccinated, you can layer on protection with masking, social distancing, testing, surveillance, and things like that to protect yourself against COVID-19, especially if you're among the population that's been vaccinated and boosted in a while. Vaccinated and boosted for a while, you may be feeling a little more anxious as cases have been in an uptake. So again, just utilize those layers of protection, and vaccines continue to be an important layer. This one is a little bit of a two-parter. Is a booster dose of the COVID-19 vaccine necessary? So kind of like the last question, but also the question that we are hearing most often is, should I wait until the fall for the Omicron specific booster. And I think this is what's more on people's minds, especially as we hear more and more about the Omicron variant. So I want to take this time to highlight why a booster is important. We went over and kind of showed in the TikTok what a vaccine does. And if we're talking about the spike proteins or the forks, we're talking about trying to teach our immune system that when it notices COVID-19 as our system, it knows how to fight it off. Unfortunately, this ability to fight off or recognize COVID-19 or immunity, it wanes over time. And a booster can remind the immune system how to fight off coronavirus by reintroducing the spike protein or the other type of proteins, or the fork as the TikTok. And so that it can strengthen the immune system all over again. This is protection that is needed now. And I know right now it is confusing because the messaging can be a little unclear on whether you should get vaccinated now, wait for the fall, but I would encourage you to take into consideration a few things when deciding on whether you should get vaccinated or boosted now, if you are unvaccinated or you are not up to date with your booster shots. One thing I would consider is whether you are immunocompromised or not. If you are currently taking medicines that suppress your immune response, if you are suffering from a health condition that makes you immunocompromised, such as chronic kidney disease, I would encourage you to consider getting boosted, or I would at least encourage you to discuss getting boosted with your care team. Another consideration I would take into account when deciding to get boosted or vaccinated is your age. From the start of the pandemic, age has been a significant factor in susceptibility to severe complications from COVID, severe illness, death, hospitalization. So if you are of the older population, I would consider, again, getting vaccinated or boosted, or again, just at least talking to your care team on if that's the best choice for you. And it's when it comes to waiting for the fall, the messaging is unclear at best on when this time, what the timeline is. The White House, I'm sure, is putting a rush order in. They would love to get the Omicron specific boosters out, but it's important to know that we don't know when they will become available. And especially if you're among the vulnerable, Omicron is happening now, and it's spreading now, and people are getting sick now. So time it's not on our side when it comes to waiting until the fall, because Omicron might not be the dominant strain come September, October. And there's a lot of virus circulating right now. And also, we are unclear if getting boosted now will disqualify you from getting boosted in the fall, because again, there is not many vaccines or Omicron specific boosters that are being discussed right now. That I'm aware of, there's only one that's truly being discussed, even though many manufacturers are working on it. So I encourage you to make decisions for right now and not in the future, because we know how these vaccines work. They do offer protection for the Omicron variant right now. There's a lot of vaccines circulating not a lot of vaccine. There's a lot of virus circulating right now. And especially if you're among the vulnerable or you have vulnerable loved ones close to you, you want to consider getting vaccinated. Vaccinated or boosted. So that is my response to waiting. It's kind of complicated, and more information will go out, and we will continue to keep you updated on this guidance. But for right now, in conclusion, I encourage people to consider getting vaccinated, or at minimum, vaccinated or boosted, or at minimum, consulting with their healthcare professionals or a part of their care team, especially if they are among the vulnerable populations we discussed. So thank you for sticking with us today for our presentation. If you have questions about anything today, we discussed a lot. Feel free to reach out to us at reach@nkfm.org or visit www.nkfm.org. And if you're interested in our next live stream, register at nkfm.org/COVID-19. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.